All right. It's time. We are going live with another episode of Hockey Royalty, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. The fearsome twosome is back at it here. The old making rain alumni, Joe Paterino and Randy McMahon in the house. Russell is, out having fun, out having fun, trying to drink away the woes of Kings hockey. And he let us come and hold down the hatches, man. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right. What a crazy last almost 24 hours or so in King's world. That's for sure.
I mean, we'll deep dive into it, but if you would have told me, hey, they got 4 points in 3 games in this last week, I'd be like, okay, yeah, the team's probably doing pretty good, but it's complete and utter anarchy. How? Let's go back though a little bit. Last time was before Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving, man?
Good.
Did you go up 2 pant sizes with lasagna, or what's going on?
It was an issue, right? It was a problem. A lot of lasagna. I actually had lasagna. I had my first dish. I had lasagna, turkey, and then I had so much mashed potatoes that my cousin actually said, "Hey, I don't know." As I sat down, he's like, "I don't know if you noticed, if you saw the mashed potatoes there." He's joking because I had a heap on my plate. So I finished that, but like I didn't have the gravy, like the turkey and gravy with because I had the lasagna, and I don't want to mix it. So I had the first plate, and then I had to go back up because then I just got my traditional turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy and hammered that. Then I had a piece of chocolate pie. I had a cannoli pie. I mean, it was bad news, Randon, for the waistline. That's for sure. Bad news.
The eating didn't stop the eating didn't start until the brisk of 9 a.m. We had breakfast, like this breakfast dish with like eggs and potatoes and sausage and stuff like that. We had espresso coffee martinis, a little mimosa. So I had the double TV thing running in my living room with the World Cup and the football going on the same time. So the snacking did not start until 9 a.m., which is very early, and it didn't stop until about 11 p.m. With my third or fourth slice of pie. The waistline was very much a consideration with my sweatpants choice for all day long.
And hey, man, speaking of World Cup, United States on to the knockout stages, going to play the Netherlands. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And hopefully an opportunity for them. It's going to be a tough one. The Dutch are good.
Yes.
They're a skilled team. They'll be a tough one to beat, but a good opportunity, a fun opportunity to see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. I believe it's Saturday at 9 my time or 9 Eastern or something like that. So it might be a little early. 10 Eastern.
Like
okay. Definitely. What a crazy goal by Pulisic. Hopefully his hip is good enough. He wasn't able to come back in the second half. The Dutch are no joke, so we'll see there. And then
Sargent got dinged up too with I think his ankle, so hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, so we have some there, and if we get a W, like a good field goal story today was Australia, like pulling it out. They haven't been since 2006, and the Aussies in the United States could be the Socceroos could be in it. Let's go, So yeah, I'm excited. It's a good time. I'm enjoying it. I don't watch soccer year round, but I have it on my phone while at work, and I'm enjoying the fandom and stuff. It's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Fandom for the Kings has not been pretty cool as of late, and I don't think that the management thought it was very cool either. With news this morning, Cal Peterson on waivers, headed downtown to Ontario. Most likely we'll get through. I don't know who would want to eat that contract, but man, after last night, abysmal showing for both goalies. Cal is getting the boot downstairs. How do you feel about that, Joe?
So Russell and I last week talked about the goaltending, and I asked him, I said, realistically, what can they do? And he said, and I agree with him, I've been saying it for a long time. I've been saying it since the preseason. Their hands are tied. There's no way they're waiving Cal and going to have his money because they're only saving a little bit of cap, right? But they're going to have that money in the AHL. And I think Rob Blake's going to really give this an extended look to make sure before he cuts his losses and kind of takes his L, if you will. I was wrong. He very, I think we had asked or we had talked about before the season, like at what point does it get to was Cal bad enough last year to where, okay, we're not going to waive him. The Kings are going to waive him before the season, before his contract even kicks in. That's not going to happen. Like, it has to be really, really bad for this to happen. And it got really, really bad. Russell and I talked about the goal he gave up to Kreider against the Rangers, which was just a terrible goal, frankly. And he came in relief of Quick against the Kraken, and he didn't look good. I mean, he had the fluky goal, but like, it just seems like that's a fluky goal that only is going to go in on him these days in the NHL. He didn't look good on, I think one of the later goals. I think the 8th goal, he didn't look good. It was just another rough performance. And I think this is the first move like that Rob Blake can make, right? So, because I don't think he could have, because I know people are out there wanting to fire Todd McClellan and all that stuff. I don't think Rob Blake could have realistically done that with the goaltending he's given his coach. He signed Cal to this deal. And for as many great moves as Rob Blake has made, this one is not looking good right now. So I think he has to do something to address the goaltending before you can make a move behind the bench, because this is the number one issue on the team is between the pipes. And I do acknowledge, like, it's the D zone as well. It's not just the goaltending, but the goaltending has been bad. So this is the first move. We'll see what they decide to do. Is it going to be Matt Villalta that comes up? Is it going to be Phoenix Copley? Do they have something else up their sleeve? I don't know. I think they're going to probably have some sort of a press conference on Thursday. They canceled their media today for probably obvious reasons, I guess, although it would have been nice to hear from somebody. So, we'll see what they decide to do. But long-winded way of saying I was wrong. I did not think he would pull the trigger this quickly, but I kind of give him credit for doing so. And because at some point the bleeding, you just have to stop. Like, I think I said it last week, like, at what point, when this position is actively hurting your team, like, eventually you have to do something. And it came to this.
Yeah, Einstein's definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And you can't just keep rolling the same two guys out there and expect something different to happen. Yeah, you guys took that L pretty quickly there, Joe, on saying that this wouldn't happen, and less than a week later. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I mean, it is what it is at this point. I mean, whether it's money here or money in the NHL, it's not being productive at this moment. So, let's go to the Reign stats here real quick, just so that people can kind of understand what's going on down there in Ontario. Phoenix Copley's started 11 games. You're looking at a 2.48 goals against average and a 913 save percentage. But Matty V, man, 7 games in the pipes, 219 and a 927. I understand the want to go with either guy, right? You want to see, hey, we talked about this for Villalta in preseason. Like, this is his year to really show and take it to the next level. And now Copley's been in there, and I wasn't a fan of that move at the time. Who would have known that it's been beneficial for us, or it will be? I guess that's, besides the point. But I'm a fan of giving Matty V the shot here, and seeing what he can do, and giving him 2 or 3 games. I think he's waiver exempt. So even if you go up and come back, throw him back down and give Copley a couple games and bring him back down, I really don't know how you go about this. I can see the veteran status of Copley. I can see wanting to see what you have with Villalta, but CJ's right here. I mean, the body language of Quick walking down the hallway after being pulled said it all. I think he's even done with how things are being handled. So it's like something had to change. I believe I would go with Villalta just to see what you have in the young kid, because sometimes that youth spark is what you need. Where would you go versus where you think they would go?
Well, I first of all, yes, I agree. I do think I would go Villalta, and the reason is he's earned it at this point. So I wouldn't have said that before the season, because I don't think he would have been here on merit. He would have been here because it was a feel good. He's paid his dues, quote unquote. Just give him the shot. But his numbers didn't support it. His play didn't support it. But he's having a really good start to the season. So you know what? I think it's warranted to say, you know what, we're going to bring somebody up. We're going to bring up Villalta. That said, I think they're going to really lean on Jonathan Quick right now. I don't think, barring a tough back-to-back perhaps, that they're going to start whoever it is that they bring up. I kind of think who it is going to be a backup. So I can probably see Phoenix Copley being up so Villalta can play. then again, they're probably going to want Cal to play to work through whatever the heck's going on with him. So long-winded way of saying, my hope would be Villalta. I think he's earned it, not only from the time, but now he's starting to put it together. He's having a really good start to the season. So I think it would be a good reward for him, and I think it would be warranted.
Do you think that you would start either of the guys against Arizona tomorrow?
No, well,
because you got Carolina and then you got Ottawa again.
Would I, or do I? Are you asking me? Do I think the Kings will?
Would you just bring him up and say, "Hey, man, you're
yeah, you know what? I would. Yes, I would. Because if you're looking to make a change, things aren't going well. Not that you need to send a message to Jonathan Quick. And I said last week, like, I'm not even mad at Quick. He's the expectation shouldn't be for him to be leading this team, but yeah, I'd have no problem if they call up Villalta, start him against Arizona, and say, like, really shake things up here, right? Why not? Again, let's not forget, Quick gave up 5 against Seattle. It's not as if he's playing well, because he's not right now. And again, I want to acknowledge neither of the goaltenders are getting a ton of help in front of them, but I would start, say Villalta, bring up Villalta and start him. Yes, I would.
Me too. I think I'd just give it something different. I mean, you look at what happened last year, and granted it was for injuries, but you had different young guys come up throughout the season and be jolts of energy, whether it be Jordan Spence or Mervari here and there. This year you're seeing Velarde being a huge jolt, Kaliev on the power play, which we'll get to later in the pod. Eventually it's time to turn the table sometimes. And I'm not saying that Cal is a super young dude, but Jonathan Quick, you got to see eventually, what if he doesn't sign next year? What if he retires? What if you got to see what you have. And I think bringing up Villalta and giving him, I would say either you give him Arizona or you give him Ottawa. But I mean, I don't think Carolina would be doing him service there, because they're a really good team. But then if you start him in Ottawa, you're starting him on the road, where you could start him at home against Arizona and have him be close and kind of, mitigate, the pressure, so to speak.
I actually wouldn't be surprised to see, and again, so like I said, I'm on board with that. I would do it. What I wouldn't be surprised to see the Kings do is let Quick get these last 2 home games to offer a little bit of stability. And actually, when they get on the road, then find a spot to play whoever it is that they're bringing up, whether it's, again, Copley or Villalta. So I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody get a start on the East Coast.
Because you have on the East Coast swing, or the Canada swing, starting December 6th, you have Ottawa, then Thursday Maple Leafs, and then Saturday Montreal. Maybe you start the young kid against Ottawa and Montreal, the 2 weeker the teams, get Quick against the Maple Leafs, and yeah, we'll have Quick start both of them at home. That might be something. Nick Vorman coming in here. Does Villalta really have the NHL chops? We don't know, because he hasn't played an NHL game yet. He's doing well this season. I think Joe is exactly right. He deserves to at least get a look. Get some stuff going underneath him, because he's a third round pick, which is high for a goaltender. His play hasn't supported it until this year, and I mean, goaltending is about feeling confidence. And right now, who's more confident than Matt Villalta in the Ontario Reign with what he's been doing this year?
Yeah, and sometimes it takes time, right? I mean, sometimes it'll take to your mid-20s if you're a goaltender to really find your rhythm. So the fact that it's taken Villalta a few years, I don't think it's necessarily a problem. But that said, he didn't look the part yet, and so far the early part of this season, he's looked very good.
Yeah, I mean, Yannetti came out and said it's usually draft year +6 or +7. He was drafted in 2017, so you're thinking 2023. 24 when he's going to be NHL ready. So, I mean, he's right on the cusp of that. And so it's something to be there. We brought it up here before with Cal, and maybe we get a little into this with the goalies, but Nick Froman coming in here saying the decor has looked so disjointed. I like Dursey, but getting tired of seeing him on his backhand. He should be a sheltered power play specialist at most. We talked about shaking things up from the goaltender perspective. Do you think this has to be trickled down into the defense as well?
So I will say yes, that the defense and the defensive zone is a problem. I agree on Dursey. I like Dursey. I think he's doing the best he can in a tough spot on his off wing. I don't think it's his best spot, but given the roster right now, it is what it is. So until they address that, he should play, and he's going to play on the left side, unfortunately. The defensive zone is chaotic right now. It is a mess. And I'm trying to figure out where this breakdown in coverage is or why it's happening. Because it isn't just, Sean Dursey, or it isn't just Sean Walker, or, pick on a young kid, Gabe Velarde or Arthur Kaliev. Like there are breakdowns among veteran players, and you're seeing them play or attempt to play their man-on-man coverage, and it is just falling apart for whatever reason. And it's a little surprising because this has been a team that's been very strong defensively in the past. So to see them struggle like this is really alarming. And it's hard to say, like, I know it's easy. It's easy to say it's coaching and fire the coach, but maybe, but boy, to see some veteran guys look as lost as they've looked, did McClellan really change the scheme that much to where they're this disjointed? I don't know. We're not there in practice. We're not in the room. We're not in the meetings. I don't see a drastic system change. In fairness, like I haven't gone back and like studied last season to, refresh my memory as to what the D zone looked like in the past versus this year. But I don't know that McClellan has drastically changed his defensive zone system per se. So it's really hard to pinpoint, honestly, but it is alarming. And, yeah, sure, Cal's on waivers, but that's not the answer here. Okay. And Matt Malalt is not the answer. Phoenix Copley's not the answer. Jonathan Quick is not the answer. There's more that needs to be solved here. And it's a structural thing. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, to be honest.
Do you give any other guys some games here that can move up and down waivers, like a Toby Bjornfort or Jordan Spence, or you keep putting Tuna in there because Mavari's played really well, and I know you're the chairman of that fan club, but like where would you go here, like to shake things up?
I mean, the thing is this, like, I'm a Sean Dursey fan, so I don't want to take him out of the lineup. And I think the easy thing would be to say, well, just put him in and scratch Sean Walker and put Moverari on the left side. What's so hard about that? Like, I know Sean Walker's kind of become this whipping boy, but he's not played that bad, especially recently. I think he had a slow start to his season, a really, really slow start to his season, I think, which is probably to be expected coming off of the injuries. But I actually think he's playing okay lately. Now, does that mean he should be in the lineup over, a left-handed Moverari to get things settled, or Brant Clark? I don't know. Like, personally, I would rather see Moverari play on the left side and then Dursey move down to his right side and scratch Walker. But I understand why the team's not going to do that, because Walker's not playing that bad. Dursey's not playing. He's producing, at least. I shouldn't say he's not playing that bad. He's had a rough week here, but he's producing. I would like to see Moverari, preferably to Bjornfot, in my opinion. And I think Bjornfot's having a nice season down in Ontario, and I'd let him keep doing that right now. It wouldn't be Spence for me. And what I'll say with Spence, like, let's remember what's going on with Dursey when it comes time for Spence and Clark to be regulars. Because remember, Dursey was huge offensive production in Ontario, comes up, made some mistakes, but he was a feel-good story last year. And now, like, the reality is set in, and it's like, he's a risky defender. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. Jordan Spence is going to make plenty of mistakes too, and so is Brant Clark. So I just would want to say, like, keep that in mind when these guys are regulars. Like, it ain't easy all the time. And these young players, especially these young offensive-minded defensemen, are going to get exposed at times. So I wouldn't say Jordan Spence at the moment, no.
I know my hype train is off the rails here, fueling back up for its next tour, but you keep your Brant Clark out of your mouth when you're talking about him like that, all right? I'm just telling you. It ain't going to be tolerated on this pod.
Live,
yeah. I mean, I don't understand what the deal is with the group with Mavariari. Like, all he seems to come in, play solid defense, which is what this team needs. There was nothing solid defensively about the game last night, and that's what we're moving to. Our next topic was what's cracking, and it wasn't the defense. The defense wasn't cracking. for either team. So what is the deal with not playing Rivari? What is Team X seeing that we're not seeing? Because every single time I see him in there, he's doing a good job.
And you would be correct. He has performed well in the couple of games he's played this year. So what I would love to know is, who is it? Is it McClellan that wants to continue on with this decor, or is it like Rob Blake? Because I know there's this kind of speculation of, hey, we want to get Walker as much playing time to showcase him and show other teams he's healthy so we can trade him. Again, I don't know that I necessarily buy that. I get the logic, but I don't know. It's not how I'm thinking about it. If it happens, it wouldn't shock me. But so who's
what value? Like from a 7th to a 5th round pick? Like what value are we pumping up here?
Maybe anything. Like maybe he was somebody that wasn't even considered tradable because of the injury and he hadn't played in forever. Now that he's gotten a bunch of games under his belt, maybe there's a team that at the time didn't have the need, now does have the need due to an injury, something of the sort, that now he becomes somebody that's a useful player. I don't know. So, I mean, I've always said that I generally think that McClellan is going to lean on the guys that he trusts. And right now, I think that's most of those guys that you see in the defense group are veterans. I'm a little like,
at this point, I think Clark is a Rob decision, and I think everybody else in that is T-Mac's decision.
Probably. And I'm actually a little surprised that McClellan, assuming, and I'm going to say this, assuming it is his decision, like that he's sticking with, and that he wouldn't want a lefty. Because there's times where it's clearly a struggle for Dursey on that side, that you wouldn't think that he'd want to deal with that, McClellan. It being somebody that wants more of a defensive structure, that you would think he'd want a Moverari in that lineup to kind of balance some things out. And even if you kind of not rotated Walker and Dursey, but you can kind of mix and match a little bit there, I suppose. But it's interesting because, there really hasn't been much of a change here. They just keep trotting the same 6 out. And again, I don't want to say it's like an individual, one person's at fault here, and so they're ruining it all for everybody, but the collective unit. And I will say also, like, it's not just the defensemen, the forwards are to blame here too, but there's been no apparent change in the deep pairings or the structure for that matter, from what I can see.
So let's get back to the Kraken game, because what a doozy this one was. It was, my brother's like, well, how are you still watching this? I was like, because we're still in the game, but it's kind of hard to watch some of the defensive gaffes that were there last night. Weird fact that all games that have had 6 goals in the first period have been with the Kings this season.
It's just hilarious because you just all of the talk was, man, if the Kings can just find a way to put the puck in the net a little bit more and fix the power play, they're going to be business. Well, they've done that, and it is a mess. It's still just like, holy crap. Now they can't get a save and they can't keep the puck out of the net. It's the just the sloppiness, the apparent like just miscommunication and missed assignments, guys being left wide open in the slot, the cross seam passes that were allowed to get through. It's alarmingly bad what happened last night. And I don't know, I wouldn't have wanted to be on that coaching staff last night and having to watch that tape that night and then today, this morning, and have to go through that, because it's a train wreck, and you have to, at some point, I'm sure McClellan and company are looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, what the hell are we doing wrong here? Because you can't help but do that as a coach and say, it's been this is 25 games now. This isn't like a 5-6 game thing. This is 25 games into the season. You're a third of the way into this season, and it's still a disaster in the defensive zone. And that is a big, big problem. And as much as I want to try to be a little bit sympathetic to McClellan and the coaching staff and say there's a lot of individual breakdowns, boy, at this deep into the season with this largely veteran club, this is a problem.
It is a problem. I mean, you're looking at the game starts out on fire right away. Kopitar's like, okay, we might come out here and and do something good. The boys look buzzing. The Fiala line, the Kopitar line, get a point right away, which, that was the big thing on the last podcast, Fiala moving back up. And then it just went straight downhill from there. And then I was like, okay, man, we're keeping up. It's 2-2. I mean, I know Beniers and McCann scored and like within 3 minutes of each other, and we don't look good. And then power play goal. So, okay, I like the power play goal. And then they score right again. It was just like, it was just up and down mentally. And then I'm looking at it like at the end of the third period, it's okay, 3-3, clean slate. Let's see if they can turn on some defense. And they turned it off even further going into the rest of the game. The errors were just ridiculously bad. Huevos for the Seattle coach to keep Martin Jones in there on the onslaught of 8 goals. Ultimately he gets the dub, but his save percentage didn't help there, which I guess really isn't the point. But yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this team right now, and I'm seeing it. Fiala is a point per game player, and so when you sign him, you're like, okay, point per game player, great, as advertised. You're looking at Anze Kopitar, second in the team in scoring, which was what we thought, 19 points in 25 games. Then you have the heralded Gabriel Velarde coming out of nowhere, and we said we needed somebody to rise. We thought maybe that would have been Byfield or whoever, but Gabriel Velarde is there. The couple guys that are just really dropped off this season so far. Really, you could say Kempe, but he's still 8. He's third away the season, and he has 8 goals, so he's on pace for what, 24, 25, which is still, not the 30, but it's still not bad for what you paid him. So you would think, just looking at the stats and never watching any of the games, that this team is not playing badly, but they are. Like, where's the disconnect in your eyes? Because T-Mac can't find it, so maybe Joe Paterino can.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you're right. You look at their 5-on-5 metrics; they're one of the top teams in the league in Corsi 4. They're a strong team in the league when it comes to expected goals. The problem is it's the defensive zone, period, is the problem. And again, I don't want it to just say it's all the goaltending, but the defensive zone is just it's running amok right now. Then again, it's bad, but like when you look at the stats, and you look at the scoring chances allowed, and you look at like the high danger chances allowed, like they're not. I mean, they're like bottom 10 in the league in those categories, and so there's your answer. It's just they're scrambling in their own zone, and when you couple that with one of the league's worst, I think it's the league's fourth worst, 5-on-5 save percentage. Couple that with one of the worst penalty kills in the league, your numbers defensively are going to look abysmal, and they do right now.
Is there somebody worse than us? Because I can't imagine it.
In what? Yes.
PK.
Penalty kill there is. I think the Kings are 27th. There's a few teams worse, believe it or not.
Not.
And believe it or not, there's 3 teams worse than the Kings in 5-on-5 save percentage, which seems really hard to believe, but believe it or not. So it really is a defensive zone thing. And again, I had that article a week or so. It was after the Flames game, I think, where I was doing a lot of like breakdowns as to like what went wrong on certain plays. It's like, this is where it's so hard, and you just throw your arms in the air. I was like, is it a system thing, or is it players not doing their job in the system? And why is that happening? Why are these individual breakdowns happening? And that's what's really hard to watch with that, is you don't know what that means. What is happening there? Is it an individual thing, or is it something within a system that's breaking down? But it's happening so frequently, and like this Kraken game was unreal. To see a Kings team perform like this defensively, we don't see that. We're not used to seeing that. And like you said, the porous defensive zone, how easily they were able to find seams and areas for passing options in the offensive zone, and it was just remarkably bad. And then again, some weak goals that were allowed, even when they were facing the shooter and set. Cal Peterson, a couple of them, it was just flat out beaten by not great shots, and it's just all
and
that.
Then you have the Cal goals where it hits his blocker, goes straight up in the air, hits him in the shoulder, and falls in the goal.
Right. only on him could that happen. It seems like. And again, I sit here. I've just talked for like 4 or 5 minutes, and I feel like I haven't said anything because like I don't know what the answer is right now. And I'm sure this is a tough spot for McClellan because he's not an idiot. He's been in the league a long time. If this is happening this frequently, the goaltender that was just signed to be the heir apparent has been waived. They're getting a lot closer to you, I would imagine, if you're the head coach. So pressure might be coming in pretty heavily here.
And like, what do? You can't like, I mean, we'll go like maybe later on the pod about what we would do after all this, but like a lot of people are like, oh, let's roster churn this thing. Let's switch up all the lines. Are you like, okay, who are you playing with Doughty then? You're not going to play anybody but Mikey Anderson. Then who are you going to, like, you can't really roster churn the defensive pairs unless you're playing Mervari, unless you're bringing guys up and sitting other players. But with who they have on the roster right now, the only really move is to play Mervari and sit Walker, which is fine by me. But like, there's not a drastic move they can make outside of complete personnel change via trade.
Which I don't think is necessarily realistic, right? So like it would have to be a system overhaul, right? Rather than maybe going to switching to something more of like a zone defense. If they are really struggling this much with just completely losing man-on-man assignments the way they are, and when one guy loses an assignment, it just seems like the whole thing falls apart and all sorts of passing seams open up. That, do you switch to something that's a little bit more of a zone coverage and just say, you know what, we're going to let you have the puck a little bit. We're going to keep you to the outside and just not give up anything high danger. I look back to that Edmonton game where Edmonton had the puck. You can't play like that every game, though, because Edmonton had the puck a long time and the Kings blocked like 28, 29 shots on goal. So, like, that's not a way to play every game, but like there could be scenarios where it's like you pick and choose, and some games maybe you just say, we're gonna keep things to the outside here. We're gonna bend, don't break. We're just gonna take away the high danger chances, and maybe that's a route that you take, because right now they're giving up plenty of high danger chances.
Yeah, I wonder if they would be able to make. Is that something you can make like mid game? Because I know in basketball you can switch up the defense pretty much mid game. Is that something in hockey you can do it, or
it's tough, man? Like, it sounds like it would be easy to do, right? But I think we take for granted like how kind of like these guys are so used to doing certain things, and if they haven't done this, if they haven't worked on this type of system, then to just change it comes with its own potential issues in terms of adjustments to that. I think Vegas, they switched to this when Bruce Cassidy came in, but they had an off season to do this. They had a preseason to work on this and implement it. And it's different for them. They were a team that controlled possession last year. This year, they still are a good possession team, but they don't have the puck enough or as much as they used to. But they really control the expected goal share because they're not giving up high danger chances. They're not giving up high danger scoring chances because they're just doing a lot of keeping things to the outside, letting you have the puck a little bit more than you normally would, but they're not letting you inside, and then they're getting good goaltending to boot. So the Kings, I don't know that they will. I'm not saying they should shift to that, because that could be a drastic shift in season here, where I guess there's 25 games in, guys are in on a lineup with injury and stuff. So you're trying to get that kind of continuity. So that could be a tall ask. But what I would say is, like, hypothetically, if you were to fire McClellan and you bring in a new coach, that new coach may want to do something drastic like that anyways. Right. Yeah. So you never know who you bring in. So it's a tough one. It's a good question. I mean, these are pros, so you would think in theory, like, yes, this should be something that can be done, but I don't think it's always necessarily that easy.
Richard coming in here saying that Edler's played too many games already this season. He needs to be scratched. I think a lot of this stuff is as well. We thought my over under for him was 41 games coming into the season, well on pace for over that. So, Mervari is not only for scratching, the right on the left side, but Edler can't play 82 games. Like, he shouldn't be playing 82 games. He doesn't look as crisp as he did last season. Where's your thought on this? I mean, do they need to bring up, is this partly with not only Jersey or whoever the righty is playing on the left side, but Edler as well?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, but I'm not at all surprised at this. Like, I think when we talked about this, we talked about that over under of games. I was way over, way over. If he's healthy, he's playing, period. Like, otherwise, I don't think they would have bothered bringing him back. He's going to play. And again, he probably should get some rests here and there, especially when you have a very competent Moverari just sitting there. But again, McClellan's going to go with who he trusts, and you trust a guy like Alex Edler, so it is what it is. I mean, I think as long as he's healthy, he's going to play.
How can T-Mac trust anybody at this point, to be honest with you?
That's fair. Fair question. Fair question.
So let's Tarantino this thing and go back in time here, back in California, coming back from the road trip there. Obviously, we played New York before the last podcast, but got a couple games in there. One against in San Jose and one against the Senators there. San Jose game looked pretty good. Typically we play down in San Jose, or San Jose has our number. Timo Meyer is the bane of my existence. But Kings get the 5-2 win there, and then seemed like they were kind of had a little bit of momentum here and there in the Senators game, but blow it in overtime. I think that's 4 straight overtime losses being Seattle for the Kings. So anything you want to pick out of those 2 games, maybe positive or negative, because we've been doing a lot of whining lately.
I'll be honest, I'm going to be a little bit more negative here. I don't think the Kings were that good. I think they were really bailed out against the Sharks by a really bad James Reimer performance. He was not good. I'm just trying to think of a way to put this nicely. He just was not very good.
He was Cal Peterson-esque, is what we're
saying. Sure. That's yes. Yeah. And I think that the Kings were.
Don't mean to kick you while you're down, Cal. Don't mean to kick you while you're down. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think the Kings were bailed out a little bit there, and some of the goals, again, full marks. I think Kapari got on the board. I want to say that game, Jod got on the board, and that was great. But some of these goals were not. They're not NHL goals. So, hey, take the win, move on. That's fine. But I don't think they necessarily played a great game. And I would kind of say the same thing against the Sens. That first period was just dull. I think Alex Faust said on the broadcast there was no flow to it, and he was 100% right. Now, they get a little bit of a pep thanks to a couple of Arthur Kaliev power play goals, which is great. But again, kind of just a lackluster 5-on-5. They get a point. Okay. Not great. Against this, not great, I guess, but they get a point out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when you win games when you're not playing well, but it's not like you want the team to start playing well. You want it you can look at the silver lining all you want. Yeah, we got 3 out of 4, but
this is a Sharks team that we expected the Kings to be definitively better than, and the Sharks controlled, 54% of the Corsi. They had 57% of the expected goals. Like, I know we're in San Jose, but if this is a Kings team, you expect to be much better than that against a Sharks team that they should be much better than.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Vietnamese bailed out by Reimer there in that game, and it just bad. It's just straight bad. And I do want to give props to Jad for scoring his first goal of the season. Yep. Get some positivity in there. Kapari, that fourth line looked good.
A little bit in that game. Power play buzzing.
Power play is buzzing, and we'll go deep dive in that later on in the pod. And that might just be a good segue to get started on that now. Let's start with DraftKings, our segue here for sports betting. You have DraftKings. Hey, hockey fans, light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into even bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at even bigger payout. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. So let's get in here to the master. Then this topic right here is kind of be a combination a little bit for everybody listening. We're talking about everybody here on Twitter is like, oh, Kaliev is so high on our team in goals. Why isn't he getting moved up the lineup? Is is, he's only doing this with 11 minutes or so on ice. We need to pump him up. Or is Kaliev, is that going to be his role going forward, or maybe his 5-on-5 isn't something that can play on a first or second line, and he's just going to be touted as that sniper on the power play? And then we're just going to talk the power play as a whole, because the one thing that we can say for this team is that the power play is clicking quite well since they've made some of those little changes there. Joe, where do you want to start with this one, my man?
With Kaliev, I don't think this should be like a, this is what he is for his career. I think he's, again, I keep saying this, but McClellan's going to go with what he trusts, and I don't think there's a spot for him right now in the top six. That Arvidsson line is still going really well, and you look. I mean, the scoring chances and the shot contributions that the top line since Fiala has moved back up. I mean, they're all over the ice offensively. They're struggling defensively, admittedly, but they're creating tons of chances up front. So I mean, I don't have any issue with Fiala up at that top line. So I don't know that there's a fit necessarily for him in the top six right now. So it's working. I think, he's not going to score 2 power play goals a week, 3 power play goals a week. That's going to be a tall task, but, take it while you can. But it'd be nice to find him a little more 5-on-5 time if you can. I don't know where that is right now. Again, I just would be surprised to see McClellan change up the top six right now. So for now, it's okay. But no, I don't think this is like a future for Gabe Vilardi Arthur Kaliev is going to be just fourth line player that is just a power play specialist. I still think there's more of a player that can be an impactful 5-on-5 player.
It just seems kind of weird to me because he's on pace for less time on ice than last season. Being one more year of experience, I guess that maybe comes with the Vilardi and the Fiala, rise within the team, and that kind of goes from there. But his Corsi's not bad. I mean, 58 for Corsi. His Fenwick is up over 59. You're getting quite a bit. His expected goals for or goals for percentage is still 53. So it's all in the positive on 5-on-5. It's not like he's a deficient. Yeah. I just think maybe, do you think he has the skating ability to be on a top line? I think so. With the McKinnons and those types of players to be able to keep up with them game in and game out? Or do you think he's maybe a middle six guy with power play 1 to kind of cover some of that stuff up 5-on-5?
I think it depends on who his centerman is. And I think there's a reason why I think he's clicked really, really well with Blake Lizotte. And I think Blake Lizotte's kind of an underrated play driver, if you will. Like he's continued to have pretty good possession numbers on the whole, even as a fourth line center. He's actually one of the better in terms of like shot contributions per 60. He's pretty good on the Kings, is Blake Lizotte, and most of those are coming from via shot assists. So he's going to be the guy that's setting you up. And if he's setting up a guy like Arthur Kaliev, it kind of clicks. Now, the problem, as you allude to, is minutes. They're just not getting good. Blake Lizotte, that you can't extrapolate that. He's not going to be that impactful player if you give Blake Lizotte that many more minutes. But can Arthur Kaliev be? Yes. And I think he could fit with a Phil Deneau really well. I just don't see that line breaking up right now. I think he could fit with Andrzej Kopitar. But again, I don't know that line's changing right now. So I think he can, to answer your question, be a top 6 forward with the right pieces on his line, like with the right centerman and with the right other, left winger.
Yeah, you brought up Lizotte and how he's playing well with him, and then I immediately thought of, well, who was his center all through the United States and coming up in the reign? It was Alex Turcotte, a scrappy guy who drives play and does that type of thing. And maybe that's just the kind of guy that he needs to be with, one of the scrappier guys that can retrieve pucks in the ozone and facilitate when he finds the soft spots.
That's why I think like he could be a really good fit with Phil Deneau. Like I think that could work really well. But again, is that line being broken up anytime soon? Not that I can see. But if you do split that lineup, I think Arthur Kaliev could do really well next to Phil Deneau. for that reason that you just pointed out.
So let's break it over to the power play, because I think Kaliev is really finding a spot. I think there's been some interesting stuff there with Kempe kind of at the point on, the power play one. The bumper roll has been a lot more effective with Kopitar in front of the net here and there. I know it's kind of been, ever flowing, so to speak. But what have you made from it? I mean, you've been the biggest stickler as anybody on the lack of use of the net front guy and the bumper within the system.
So it's funny, the two units are kind of operating a little bit differently, because for the first unit, and yes, I'm going to call the Kopitar unit the first unit, they did finally make the change to the bumper roll, and as you mentioned, it's kind of been this shift, right? Because against the Rangers, Velarde scored a goal from down low on the power play when Kopitar slid into the bumper. And Velarde scores a goal from the bumper yesterday or Tuesday against Seattle, right from the bumper position. Mm-hmm. So you can tell that they're trying to now incorporate the bumper to be much more of a impactful position and player on that top unit, and I think it's paying dividends because we're seeing that unit be more effective than what it was earlier in the season. And then the second unit with Kaliev, it is very much find Kaliev, feed Arthur, like that is the goal, and they do whatever they have to do that, whether it's Dursey making a play at the top or Phil Deneau, just the puck retrieval expert. And I think you had actually said Trevor Moore is kind of a sneaky good bumper player, and I think he's doing an effective enough role there to where Kaliev is being opened up, and I would agree with you there that Moore is doing a pretty good job. So I think it's working, that second unit. I think what makes them go is just their nonstop, their work ethic and their puck retrievals. Like when you watch Phil Deneau go get pucks, he keeps a lot of those plays alive that don't get kind of recorded on the box score, right? He does a hell of a job with that. So, I mean, overall, the power play, they've scored a goal in 4 straight games. They're 6 for their last 9. Kaliev and Velarde each with 2. So again, both units doing a job. I know Deneau has one in there as well in the second unit, and Arvidsson tipped one in the other day. So it's going really well right now. The Kings are, I think, 12th or 13th in the NHL in power play, believe it or not. They're over 20%. They're over 23%, if I'm not mistaken. So,
and after the first month, we were in the bottom 5. So it's really ticked up. Yeah.
And, it seems now the second unit was always kind of operating somewhat similarly and looking like Kaliev was getting those shots from that right circle. They just weren't going. And, maybe now they're just starting to fall a little bit more. But that first unit, it definitely seems to be clicking a lot more since they made the adjustment to the bumper position. So I'm just really, really glad that they finally did that. And I think you're starting to see it pay off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice because last season you see both units were relatively the same. And just around the perimeter, they didn't do much difference. And it's nice to see that both power plays have their own identity, right? You see it with some of the good power plays is, obviously the Ovechkin power play unit is feed Ovechkin. And sometimes he's out there for the full 2 minutes, right? But, so it's nice to have the two units operating a little bit differently to where the second unit is like, hey, let's let the guy with the best shot on our team, like, let's let him rip some pucks. Right. And then the first unit is let's find ways to get everybody involved and facilitate a different way through the center, the bumper down low, which I kind of like. I think the only maybe another addition that I might use is that I like Kempe at the point, but I also like him on that flank with the one-time shot. I think he does a better job than Fiala, and I don't know how you would feel about Fiala on the point, because to have Doughty. Because he's a little bit more of that skater, but he also takes a lot more chances. So he takes that chance, coughs up the puck, then it's one-on-one with the goaltender at that point. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I think it just comes down to handedness. And it just depends on how they want to operate. I think if Velarde is in the bumper and Kopitar is going to be down low, then it has to be Fiala on the right circle. You want that lefty Fiala. I guess it doesn't have to be a lefty, but he's certainly better passer and creative playmaker than Doughty and Kempe. So it kind of, I guess it does have to be Fiala, and then work the triangle with Fiala, Kopitar, and Velarde in the bumper. Now, if it's Kopitar that slides up and Velarde's on the left, then again, it'd be nice to have, but it just requires way too much shifting around of the other three guys, that it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like it'd be nice to have Kempe on the right circle, Fiala on the left, and then Doughty back up top, but that's just too much. That's too much movement, I think, and too much mixing and maxing, just depending on where and who's in the bumper. So, I still think, like, as long as whichever it is, if it's Kopitar, if it's Velarde, and Velarde most of the time, if it's him, then having Kopitar down low and having that pass come from Fiala or Kopitar is going to be the best way to do that because of Velarde being right-handed.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it at that point. So let's get into it here before we get into the Bet Stamp Player of the Week. I want to get into some fan questions. I'm going to scroll back up here and kind of peruse through them and see if we can see some that comes through here. Let's kind of perusing. Do you think Todd has lost the room? I know you guys talked about the coaching change. Do you think he's lost the room at all? Do you think that it's become tiresome? You see this with coaches, usually the hard, disciplinarians, that they kind of lose the room quicker because it kind of gets old, right? Do you think that he's lost the room in any sort of way?
This is so hard to say because we're not in the room. What I'll say, like I really didn't think a week ago McClellan's seat was all that hot, and yet fast forward a week and now I think it's he's probably feeling it a little bit. I don't know if he's lost the room. I can't say that I can really appropriately answer that question. It's hard for me to say. I mean, it definitely doesn't look good on the ice, so you can draw those lines and connect those dots if you want. I can't say that. I don't know.
Yeah,
not a good answer, but I
don't think there is an answer to that. I just think it's I think sometimes he gives like the coach speak in the interviews, and sometimes, but you can always see that he's deflated this last couple of weeks. His team hasn't played, even in the wins, they haven't played well, right? I think he looks deflated there. Let's move it over to Sebastian's. Is Velarde trade bait at this point if the team doesn't pick it up? And I think I don't know where this would be coming from. I think looking further down in the chat is that if him playing good, he's going to require a contract. Is it better to trade him rather than, lose out on him? But he's an RFA. So, we have all the bargaining power there. And why would you trade the guy as soon as he's blossoming into the player that you drafted him to be? That there's going to be cash next year with Quick coming off the books and several other players. I think it's way too early to go into rebuild mode and get rid of your number one scorer on the team right now.
No.
Yeah. I like your short answer better. A lot of chat coming in here. Oh, how we forget about Alex Alafalo. He's on his way back. I don't know how soon that'll be or how far that'll be, but a guy that we thought might be traded to start the season because where's the room? Who do we move? Can we really have a guy making $4 million on the third line? And, that line was buzzing to start the season, and defensively, the team misses him right now. Is it just the unsung hero? Is it, people in the chat saying, is he the Trevor Lewis of this team where he really gets no pub, but he does all the things necessary to keep the team glued together?
I think there's a lot to that. Yeah. I had speculated that, putting all the pieces together, like if the Kings were to make this hypothetical trade for a defenseman, there has to be money that moves out, and the only logical money that could, I guess, move out would be Iafallo. But obviously he gets hurt, but he's playing really well when he, at the start of the season. So I think the Kings, you hit the nail on the head. I think they really kind of miss him, and not to say, I don't want to overrate his absence and be like, whoa, look at how bad the Kings are defensively without, their best or top two defensive forward and Alex Iafallo. But boy, it would sure help if he's on the ice more. So I think they're going to be welcoming him back into the lineup when he gets healthy.
Welcoming you with open arms. A little journey right there for you. Let's get into it, Joe. Any big bets this week using BetStamp? We're getting into the BetStamp Player of the Week. Joe, tell people about BetStamp, because not only are you a full user, but you've been betting quite a bit. How has it revolutionized the way you approach sports betting?
It is just awesome to be able to line shop. They make line shopping so much easier. Often what I'll try to do is, like, for tonight, I'll probably look at tomorrow's lines and get a feel for what I want to do if there's any games I want to get in on, because a lot of times you can get the better odds the night before. Things change the next day. A goalie could be announced. Things could change. The lines could move, but you can get them early, and you can see them all for every sports book that's available in your state. And you can see them all right there, and not have to open up every single individual sports book like I had to do when it first became legal here in New York. And I had to open up all 5 sports books just to see where the best odds were. It's all consolidated in one spot. It tracks your bets. They're all and it syncs right for, if you place a bet at DraftKings, it's going to sync right into BetStamp, so it automatically tracks it for you. I can look up and see how I'm doing on this particular season, last season, player props, if I bet shots on goal for certain guys. Like, it is just the ease of use and the ease of tracking is just so much better. But the number one thing for me is the ability to shop lines and how easy it makes it.
Yeah, I think it's something is very getting the best for your buck, right? I mean, gambling is you're betting 100 to win 160. You're the odds are not really in your favor. I mean, that's why gambling is such a big thing. I mean, you have to really be good at it, and the odds get better with BetStamp having that that line shopping there. It's also free to use their app, and if you aren't signed up for any of these betting sites in your state, they'll give you free money to sign up through them. So it's something to really look at. Get some bets, throw it around, see what's going on. If you're not entertained by Kings hockey, maybe you watch some other games and bet on them until we get things turned around. But BetStamp is definitely something there. And if Texas would get their act together, I would be using BetStamp as well. Let's throw it over to you, Joe. BetStamp player of the week for you. I know it's a rough week to have a player of the week, but where did you go with this one?
It was a rough week. And again, I'm trying to find somebody that's maybe not always the obvious. If I can, that's not always easy, but I'm going to go with Anze Kopitar. In 3 games, he had 2 goals. He had an assist. He's over 50. There's only a handful of guys that are positive possession players this past few games here. Anze Kopitar is one of them. 54% Corsi for, 52% expected goals. He had 19 shot contributions in the last 3 games, and the only 2 people that were higher than Anze Kopitar in that stat were his line mates, Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala. So Anze Kopitar is my BetStamp player of the week for this week, and somebody that I just continue to see get like this negative pub. And maybe it's just because I've got my Anze Kopitar rose-colored glasses on all the time, but like, I don't know. Remember, he is 35, so if the expectation that he's going to be playing like he's 26, like, that's not a fair expectation. But also, he's still contributing. Like you said, he's got 18, 19 points in 25 games. He's a positive possession player he's still a solid number 1 center, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the doom and gloom of premonitions and whatever, and throwing out hypotheticals here and there, and I threw it out earlier this summer. Father Time is undefeated. When does that tip over for him? And do we have an heir apparent? And right now, some people say it is. I still think he's got some in the tank. I think the whole team has been down, but we don't have the heir apparent yet. I would feel more confident about that if Byfield was playing like Matty Beniers did the other night. But more prospect envy for Kings fans there. But I'm going to go switch it over to the other side of the puck. And not necessarily that he played overwhelmingly well, or he was dominant, so to speak. But it kind of made me feel good watching Mikey Anderson get his first goal of the season, getting off the schneid after like 60-something games. He had, I believe I have the stats pulled up here, had a goal and assist against Seattle. He was a +4 on the 3-game, playing over 23 minutes a night. So just a kind of a little unsung hero there. I think he plays a lot of minutes, which helps the team and all that kind of stuff like that. And you like to see guys get rewarded. Mike Anderson doesn't really get to see the pucks go in the back of the net too much for him. And so to see that, I chose to go the silver lining route with the player of the week rather than giving somebody an actual award that I think they deserve there.
There you go. Yeah, Mikey's been a solid solid defenseman again for the Kings, paired with obviously Doughty. So I think he's doing his job as that kind of compliment to Doughty. I guess what I would ask you. So now we're December tomorrow. Like there's all this talk, he was a late signee, signs the 1-year deal. Like, what do you think his contract is looking like at this point? Obviously this was a situation where, I mean, I think both sides probably wanted some sort of a longer term deal, but maybe the number which they didn't meet on, or whatever the case may be, because the Kings cap situation. Like, do you think this is we're going to see an 8-year deal for $5 million for Mikey Anderson? Like, what does that look like?
I've been kind of thinking about this a little bit off and on, and it's like, I think it's maybe unfair, but it's a little dictated on how the team rolls out, right? I mean, if for some reason the Kings don't make the playoffs and there isn't as much spotlight on them, right? Like Kings fans see him on a day-to-day basis, but the national media saw his spotlight playing against Edmonton. So if you're not getting, and recency bias has a lot to do with contracts on agents level. Like, look how well my player played in the biggest level in the playoffs. And that's why I thought he was going to get that longer deal last season, and it didn't work out. I mean, if the Kings don't make the playoffs and Mikey Anderson and the team is just kind of ho-hum, maybe you see it's a 2-year deal at 2.5 per or something like that. But if they make the playoffs, they find their groove and they get things cooking and they win a series, you might be looking at a 4 by 3.5 or 4 by 4, maybe not the 4, but 4 by 3.5 would see something like that on a player. Okay, he played big minutes again in a playoff series, and they won the series this time. That's back-to-back playoffs where he was the guy on a starting LD1. Eventually, you got to reward that. And so, like, I don't know how much him being a non-offensive producer like lowers his value, even though he's playing first-line minutes. Generally, obviously, the guys like the Cale Makars and all that get the big money because they're putting pucks in the net. So I think that's going to kind of stamp down his value a little bit. But I mean, I would say anywhere like a 2 to 4 year deal from anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 is what I would guess, depending on how well the Kings play.
Do you think I'm fair in saying if that's what the deal is, if it's like a shorter to midterm rather than long term, that the Kings maybe aren't necessarily, I don't know how to say this without sounding like
as in on Mikey Anderson as previously stated,
as left D1. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sound harsh on Mikey Anderson because I think he's a good defenseman. Don't get me wrong. And I've often said that I think he's a lefty one on the Kings. I don't know if he's lefty one NHL. And I wonder, like, if it's not that we're just going to lock this guy up to 7-8 years for whatever, 4.5 per, whatever it is, that if they don't do that, is it not like a vote of confidence? I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, I look at what the Sabres
no, it makes sense.
With Matthias Samuelsson, he's had hardly as many or half as many, games or whatever in the NHL as Mikey Anderson has. But, they quickly see this kid's going to be an absolute stud defensive defenseman. We're locking him up at a really nice number here, but we're doing it over a long term. It's going to look a little wonky maybe in the start, but this is going to pay off down the road, where the Kings haven't done that yet with Mikey. Maybe it's because of simple just cap constraints, and maybe they will. But just something I'm kicking around here. I don't know that I am having like this, have any strong opinion on it. Just something I've been thinking about.
No, it makes sense. I mean, if you think that he's going to be LD1 or 2, I mean, what's wrong with 2.5 to 3.5 million? I mean, if Mikey Anderson's like, hey, I need 4 to 5 because I'm this LD1 defensive stalwart, then maybe that's where the contract negotiations came down to this summer, is that's what Mikey Anderson just said. Hey, I put this on tape. Look how I played against Edmonton. This is what I deserve. Like, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, the team doesn't have a plethora of left-handed prospects coming up, but it's not like they can't move guys to get people. So, if they don't believe in him the way that we think we believe in him, or the way that T-Mac is using him, yeah, I can see that. I can see if it's a shorter deal, they're maybe waiting for a better option, greener grass, or so to speak, and they don't want to give him 4 to 5 million to be LD1 because they're still on their search for Chikrin or somebody else of that nature. But excuse me, I got a little.
Just to say how fitting of us to be talking here toward the end of the show about Mikey Anderson, lefty one, and when most of the folks are listening to this on podcast form, it's going to be on the night that the Kings are hosting Jacob Chychrun and the Arizona Coyotes.
There you go. It's almost like we didn't plan it that way. No, I think that. And do you feel like they want a true LD1? Like, I mean, you can only Doughty's contract is there for a long time. You have the heir apparent where apparently Clark is going to be making good money, so to speak, depending on how his stats go up. So you can't really pay both. Can you pay both the line mates over $7-8 million? Like, is that something that you can do? I mean, I know the Sharks got into it with, Vlasic and Carlson for a little bit, but then their team started tanking because they had too much money put into the decor. Like, where do you feel like what do they want out of the left side? Like, do they want to score a perennial scorer because they have a lot of scoring on the right? Do they want a hybrid type player, a guy that offers it all and a little bit of everything? Where do you feel like the organization wants to see that shake up?
I mean, I think in a perfect world, sure, you want a guy that could probably do a little bit of the both, impact the game at both ends of the ice. I think that would be fantastic. I think, like, if you were to play the game of looking ahead, and we will throw the hypothetical and piss everybody off and say, let's just say Jacob Chychrun for now, the next 2 years, he's making a great number. That's very easy to fit in at 4.6, right? It's like he's certainly under 5. I think it's just over 4.5. So 2 more years of that, but as you mentioned, you do have Drew Doughty at 11 for the next 4 or 5 years here or so. So that does make things difficult, regardless, because Chychrun, if all goes well, is going to probably double his money in his next deal. So that's where it becomes a little bit tricky. And to your point, like, how do you work that part of it? So I don't know. I would imagine, though, like, they're going to want a guy that is capable of providing a little bit of offense too, in addition to being a good defender.
Well, I know what the best play of the week was for the organization, and Real McCoy coming in here. Did you guys see Byfield's through the legs goal? That was nasty, according to Sebastian. I agree. That was probably the play of the week for me in the Kings organization. That was a sweet goal. Good for him. How much longer do you think he needs to marinate down there? Because right now I think he's over marinating. Or do you think it's good for him? Like, let's go to that route.
So he did need this, right? He lost a lot of weight. He was sick. So he really needed to, it was going to take some time. It wasn't going to be like a game or two thing, right? He needed some time to get his legs under him and get things going. And then once he gets his legs under him, then you can start to say, okay, not even just his legs, his lungs, his timing, his rhythm, all of it. Like, then from there, it's like, okay, now we got to start to see some production. And they both happened. He's a point-a-game player right now. I think he's got 7 points in his last 3 or 4 of the games. So he's really started to kind of settle in. I think this is a good question. I would give it maybe just a couple of more games to see how he can, to see if he continues this going. I just had a piece that came out earlier this week, really kind of highlighting that I want to see him touch the puck more in the middle of the ice. I want to see him be more impactful on the breakout and on the regroups, get himself into more dangerous scoring areas. And he's doing all of that right now. And I don't think it's like a coincidence that he's also producing because of that. So I think that if we give it a couple of more games, a few more games of this, and he's continuing to do these types of things, getting these types of touches and getting himself into these particular areas, then yeah, I do think you can start to have that conversation about bringing him up. You always have to then say, okay, well, who's going down? Who's the odd man out? So barring an injury, do you take Kupari out of the lineup and send him back down? Like, what's the play? Is it, I guess that then becomes the next part of the conversation, but I don't think he has to stay down there for like another month. The way he's going, I think we can. I'm fine with a few more games, another week or two maybe, but I don't think it necessarily has to be too crazy. As long as
do you think before the road trip? Do you think he's called up before on the road trip? Because we got 2 more games at home, and then it's like 6 on the road. Like,
yeah, the thing is though, so the Reign play on Friday. They play Friday and Sunday. So. And when's the road trip start for the Kings? Next week, next Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday. So I guess if these next 2 games continue to go well, you could. But again, what's the play? Is Kupari? Is it Like, has Kapari been? Do you want to take him out of the lineup? What's the play? Who's coming out?
It doesn't matter.
It has to be Kapari because he's the only one that can go down. Right.
It doesn't matter to me. But Byfield's the higher player. He's the player that needs to, like, we need to see
what I'm saying,
thought the team would be.
So you'd send Kapari down and bring up Byfield.
Yeah. Okay. It wouldn't bother me at all. Because
I think it has to be him, because otherwise it's somebody's going on waivers. And I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do that, right? Ernest and Nolan could go on waivers and probably clear. Yeah. So I guess that's certainly something you could do. But I think that's a reasonable shout that after these 2 games. I guess the other side of the coin is see how these 2 games go for the Kings. If they win these 2 games or these next few games here, they bounce back and they play well, they put a couple wins together and settle in, and nobody's hurt. I don't know if they'll do it just to do it.
Well, to me, I think it's like, oh, well, they start winning. Well, the team has been abysmal. Like, does 2 games really make this like, oh, we're cured? Like,
it shouldn't. Like, no, you're right.
No. So, like, for me, it's like he's the heir apparent. He's got to play. He's got to play up here. If he goes and he's still a point per game player after the weekend for the rain, he's on that flight. And it's not, I guess I'm like acting like you can't join mid road trip, but typically players don't do that. Players go for the whole road trip. So, like, for me, it's like, okay, yeah, I just want our prospect to play like a freaking dominant player. Like, I want that to happen. And like, let's see it. I mean, Joe, you called December. Obviously you didn't call him to get COVID, but
right.
Or get sick, but eventually there's gotta be some like run out of excuses on why this guy isn't playing good hockey at an NHL level. And I think a lot of fans are getting to that point. Like, where they were with Velarde, like, oh, hey, he's injured all the time, this and that. Like, he's not playing well. Like, he wasted pick. Great. Like, Velarde turned it around, but there's a lot of top picks that don't turn it around. And I think fans want to see him turn it around, and they want to see it sooner rather than later.
I'm with you. Like, I'm with you. I think that we're starting to see, like I said, the signs that we need to see out of him and the way he's playing in Ontario. If that continues over these next few games, I have no problem with him coming back up and playing.
No. Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure, my man. I'm going to let you go. I know you got a lot of sleeping to do with the little Rugrats. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for joining in and talking and going in and giving us all this love here in our live shows. Really appreciate it. Find all of our articles at hockeyroyalty.com. They're coming out every single day. Thank you for all of our writers. Kyle and McGinnis for covering the rain, getting you all the coverage there. They're doing a fantastic job. Follow us here on Twitter at hockey_royalty, at Random Commando 24, at NHL Russell, at JW Paterino. DraftKings codes THPN. Bet stamp code is Hockey Royalty. Thank you for all of our fans, and may we please turn this season around right meow, because I am tired of watching poor hockey as well as everybody else. Let's do this, Joe. Let's do this. Go Kings, go. Catch you guys later.